Yesterday, there was a cheating scandal announced for the Gran Turismo World Series Manufacturers Cup. It's pretty cotton picking bad, honestly, and not to really sugarcoat things, kind of spoiling alert of the whole video. Everyone involved should definitely be in a lot more trouble than they are. So let's get into the details. For Renault, there were four different of the very top of the top players involved with all logging into the very top of the top player's account in individual races in order to race for that player because some of the lower players, while not overall better, might be better at a certain track or pit strategy or whatever it may be. And there are four total players involved with this, so they all happen to be for Renault, and they all happen to be for the same esports team, GT Spain 92. Luckily, the esports team did ban all of them, and from what I can tell, permanently. And Renault did have the points taken away for the cup itself for that particular region. That's the EMEA region. So they would have to be able to get in of another region, most likely. I don't think they would be able to come back at this point for EMEA, which you could be saying, oh, that punishes some of the lower drivers that were not the top four for Renault, but the way that I see it is that Renault probably wasn't going to make it for at least EMEA anyway, because from what it's looking like, the way that this was done is that for the top of the top player was just barely even able to get Renault high enough to make it into the qualifying manufacturers. Don't quote me on it, but just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to say 12 because at one point it was. So into the top 12 manufacturers for the Cup, and lo and behold, it was found out after that's even with others being on the account. So realistically, Renault didn't deserve to make it anyway. It wasn't one of those who were maybe just in preliminaries to drop from, say, like 5th to 8th or something like that, and where they would be going to the World Series. Anyway, it would be exposed that they weren't quite as good anyway once they were there. No, this is one of those where it's literally taking a manufacturer out that should actually be able to go to the physical event, which of course I gave my thoughts on the physical event before, but in this case, it's irrelevant. Even though I don't particularly agree with a lot of the standards with that, I understand why some individuals definitely want to go and they don't deserve to be screwed out of it because of another manufacturer cheat. I will say that I don't think it would necessarily be any Renault's fault, whether it's their actual like reward sector or if they have like an esports division or whatever. But frankly, Gran Turismo should still investigate all that. It is nice that the esports team were pretty swift in terms of banning all four of the players involved, but still, I would say PD should go ahead and investigate everything involved. Investigate Renault, investigate the esports team, investigate all four of the players, because that way it would eliminate a lot of the chance of it happening in the future. Of course, nothing will be guaranteed because that kind of goes into the next issue. Of what happened was of other three players logging into the fastest player's account, it's pretty caught picking hard to actually stop that. From how I understand it, even this was going on with like Mario Kart Wii, of what some people said. So when this has been going on for at least 15 years, it's not the easiest thing to stop. People, and I'll link it in the scripts, and probably the most talk about this is on GT Planet, so I'll link that GT Planet thread in the scripts, people brought out various ways of, if you see the same account logged in two completely different places within minutes of each other, then that shows something, but that doesn't really work either because people use VPNs. I don't think there's anything against the rules that I know of VPNs, and frankly, there probably shouldn't be anyway. I believe in VPNs and privacy and all that sort of stuff. So, there's that. And people have discussed looking at the actual analysis of each individual player, where you have all the data sets, and I've actually had that since GT6. There's been plenty of in-depth data analyzation of like individual laps and stuff like that, but I don't really know if that's the way to go either, because one lap may or may not be faster. It's hard to really correlate how they equals into an entire race with pit strategy and all that. I don't think any data analysis is advanced enough to this point to take it on a race by race basis. So frankly, it's kind of the general consensus is that there ain't really a whole heck of a heap that can be done about it to prevent it 100%. So in my opinion, of when it is uncovered, of it definitely happening, because they all four were in their esports team chat, and it was exposed of them talking kind of behind the scenes. I don't think it was really meant to be picked up, but it was, of all that going on, so they accidentally outright admitted it. I mean, a lot of the times there ain't outright public chat to get exposed. Maybe the people talking in private servers. Gran Turismo 7 itself doesn't have mics, and even if people are talking to each other, if it's not actually outright streamed to the public or anything, it's hard to catch that as well. So the way that I see it is, when it is actually outright confirmed it's happening, it should be a massive penalty on at least the players involved, and in my opinion, the esports team and the manufacturer should go ahead and be investigated as well. I'm not exactly sure of the protocol to go about it if it were to happen in nations. I don't know if it would be quite fair to investigate all of the top players for an entire nation, so there's kind of some awkwardness with that. But when it's all happening on a specific esports team, that esports team, even if they penalize quickly, should at least be investigated. Like, not necessarily held anything against to begin with. Definitely one of those innocent until proven guilty. If it just happened that all those four were in cahoots with the esports team not knowing about it whatsoever, then so be it. But still, the point that I'm making is all those four players, in my opinion, should at least be banned for this year. They shouldn't be allowed to compete in manufacturers, nations, any of that. I don't even think any of the exhibitions, frankly, from here on out. Especially because this is the official one. This isn't even an exhibition, so even more so now. But instead, you can look at the thumbnail. From how I understand it, all four players, not even the top of the top who was involved, but all of them only got a 5-day ban apiece. The way the manufacturers works is it only takes your certain top scores. I'm not exactly sure of the ratio, but usually it's about 50%. Like, if there's 6 rounds, it takes the top 3 rounds, 8, the top 4, that sort of thing. And 5 days, I don't even think would calculate to 2 rounds. At most, I'm pretty sure it would be 1 round. Granted, again, I haven't been racing in over a year in anything, and even when I did race, I didn't pay a whole heck of a heap of attention to the cups for the most part, because I didn't use my main account. But, still, no matter the situation of even if there happened to be a round every day, I still don't think 5 days is even remotely enough. Granted, I'm not sure if it should be an outright lifetime ban, especially because one of the players was a 17-year-old, which technically, because the 17-year-old wouldn't be able to compete anyway. Tisney, who's one of the very top of the top, like forever, even well back into the GT Academy days, straightforward. It's because a 17-year-old couldn't compete anyway. He could technically be running other accounts and stuff like that and not really get as much notice because the main account itself isn't even looked at by the point. So there's iffiness in terms of that, but they should all be banned at least for a year. And frankly, look at the thumbnail for this one. The idiot making a scene of this and not having any remorse whatsoever should get permanently banned. Granted, again, it would be hard to actually truly really stop the person. They could get console banned and then they could get a new console. They could get the account banned and then make a different account. Even a combination of both, it'd be hard to stop them completely. But realistically, they would still, if the talent was there, could actually make it to a physical event. That player actually had in the past and didn't seem like we're cheating in some of the previous events, even while physically there, and No Way to Cheat was not one of the very best or anything. Held his own enough to where it looked like he belonged there. And frankly, I don't know much about any of the four, but I mean, I sort of kind of recognize the names, so I couldn't really do name to face or even manufacture any of that sort of thing. I mean, yeah, it's not some complete nobody, but even if it was the best of the best still cheating, any and all should get massive penalties for this, and maybe the esports team and maybe even manufacturer should as well. That should at least be investigated. When it's a 5-day ban and they're letting someone just absolutely spout off with no extra consequences whatsoever, it certainly ain't a good look at all. Frankly, I'm almost to the point of thinking that PD is taking this like any publicity is good publicity, and they don't want to have much of a ban, because they probably know, at least with this specific issue of people logging into other accounts, it's very hard to stop anyway, and that has actually been discussed on the forum, links in the description as well. That is quite a hard one to stop, and there ain't any direct issues that would be a concrete way to stop it. So, yeah, for all we know, it's happening a whole heck of a heap, and the other players or teams or whatever are just better about keeping it quiet. Again, that's why I think when it actually does come into light, it should be even a bigger penalty at that, because maybe even if some teams have a strategy in order to keep it quiet, the risk of it in case it does become public should be massive. And it should definitely be a strike sort of thing too. If any of these four, and arguably even the esports team as well, get in trouble again, then it should be an even bigger thing. Granted, 5 days wasn't big enough to begin with. In my opinion, the first time around it should be for this year. The second time around it should be at least for the lifespan of the game. But GT7's old too, so maybe even GT7 and 8 at this point. And then third strike out completely, banned forever and always. But again, that would be sort of hard to do in terms of those helping others too. Of course, the main one who actually ends up there is you physically don't let them come back. That one's fairly straightforward. But in terms of those that you don't actually know their appearance and all that in real life, that one's harder. So no, I'm not going to act like I know an exact solution of this. So that's why I was kind of on the fence of one. I was not going to make a video whatsoever. When the initial information dropped of, oh, there was a scandal with 4 players, PD was quick to penalize, and the esports team immediately banned them as well. Okay, great. But then it came out that the PD penalty was for only 5 days, and there's still at least one of the players outright spouting nonsense and making Gran Turismo look worse than an entire game right now, so it's not the best. And then, two, I was on the fence of making this a rant-tating video as well, but I mean, like I said, of all the rant-tating, the point of rant-tating is to at least try and have a straightforward solution, other than a longer ban, which should be straightforward. I don't really have a solution for the specific issue for the going into other accounts and stuff. Because, I mean, even on the forum, again, linked, it's been said, too, that there's actually nothing against having different accounts of the same person using it, even on the same console, of different regions. It's just only, obviously, you're only going to go there if you make it for one reason. You physically couldn't compete for multiple reasons at the same time. That's impossible. You're only one person. So that fixes its own issue there. So they've never really bothered with making it a regional type of thing with accounts. The only time you get in trouble is if you're proven to use two accounts in the region you declare officially to compete in. Which even that you can change some. Like some of the absolute very best of the best have changed their region before. I think both Igor Fraga and Mikhail Hazal's done it before too. So the changing of region after an event ends before going into the next one is fine, but I mean, you even see it of some of the very top content creators is they have like a USA account and then a European account and sometimes even a Asia Oceania account as well. So if anything would have been cracking down on that, it would actually hurt a lot of the very top of the top content creators. That's a lot less eyes on the game as a whole. And frankly, in terms of region by region, I don't particularly mind that people can compete in other regions as long as their internet's good enough to where they're not bouncing around and causing chaos for other players, which granted, it's hard to say exactly with that. There's hard to put a fine point on that. I don't think anyone's been outright banned because of a bad internet connection, but still, to kind of gentleman's agreement, or however you want to call it there, to have at least decent enough internet where you can compete without messing others up in other regions. For that, because the way that it works is the more people competing, the more points there are per thing. So it's actually sort of kind of beneficial when more people race, because then more points and thus more reason for people to compete. Because if you happen to get one of those who are from another region in that region in your particular lobby, then the points for that lobby go up. So it benefits that entire lobby. Plus, the way that works for a while now is the better success for individual statistics, whether it's how good you do in your region, or your manufacturer, or your section. Like GT1 is the best, and then GT2 is like B and C or whatever. And 3 is lower than that. Yes, don't quote me on that, but it's somewhere around there. In there too, and that all calculates to how much money you make at the end of each season. So again, the more people competing, the better chance you actually have having all those percentages and such go up too. So in terms of the region thing, I think that's all in all probably for the best. If they could find some way to actually do it correctly and fairly to where everyone is staying in their own region, then so be it. But frankly, I can't think of a way to do that. Similar to kind of the same issue with, as discussed before, with the count thing. So, whatever. And there's also the precedent as well, is the only time that it has happened, because that one's a very straightforward one to notice, is when someone who actually is a content creator has two different manufacturers for one season. That one's very much noticeable, and that got a much larger ban, and you can look at that on GT Planet as well. That being probably all in all less of a true issue, because again, it was a different reason, so in a way, that kind of makes the different manufacturer relevant when you can't compete for the other region anyway, yet received a bigger ban because of the manufacturer integrity or whatever. They don't want to make the individual manufacturers tied with the game itself, mad. Which, in a way, again, is probably why Renault, even though, again, innocent till proven guilty, should at least be investigated a little bit, because they probably don't want to make the other manufacturers mad. In terms of fairness to the other manufacturers, they should probably at least investigate Renault somewhat. So yeah, there's that as well. When there's been a lot lesser offenses having much bigger penalties in the past, and kind of a similar type of offense even being hard to catch, it's really not a good look. I'm not going to outright say for 100% certain it's, again, like a WWE style, any publicity is good publicity, because like I said, for the modern Gran Turismo's, like, fake wrestling video, I gave it a caveat, is that's for like 99% of the players. The very best can usually do their own thing and move on, and this truly is talking about the very best of players. As much as it's annoying that there's cheating involved of those four, there's still no denying the skill of them. This isn't one of those where they're using like physics hacks or cheat engines or anything like that. They still actually have the talent to then get the result, even if it is on someone's account. It's not manipulating the inner workings of the game or anything like that. So it's not the absolute worst offense that could possibly happen, but I still think the penalty should be much higher. But it's still a very bad look on PD, though, that it's not a bigger penalty. Because while I'm probably one of the harsher ones in terms of all this, and again, frankly, I still don't even think these events should be happening whatsoever, but not just because of scandals. There's a whole heck of a heap of reasons, and I did a very long video specifically on that. I've done miscellaneous other videos throughout the years on specifics. I think it kind of is the general trend that the World Series events have gone down in quality over the years. I mean, even recently, Toyota's backed out, and there ain't going to be a Toyota Cup anymore. Michelin backed out fairly recently into GT Sport. Tag Heuer backed out. There's been a lot more leaving than there has been joining. Put it like that. So that's not a good look in general. So when all this is going on, it's only going to look worse for them. I don't see how anyone really benefits from this beyond maybe you could argue that any publicity is good publicity, but again, this ain't talking about the average player. This is talking about nearly the very best of the best. So it's not like it's publicity that affects almost anyone anyway. So it still ain't the dandiest of looks. I don't see how it could possibly look bad on PD whatsoever to penalize a lot harsher for this. Realistically, I don't see this being the last time that even this specific issue happens, because it's an issue that has been done in a whole heck of a heap of games for a whole heck of a heap of time. But at the very least, I feel like more and more of us need to call out to PD to penalize harder. Of course, call out to the individuals being idiots and making it to where they're not at all remorseful for their actions, and if anything, even bragging about it. Like, the best of the best player was bragging about results that he literally didn't even get. That's not a good look whatsoever. So, I mean, yeah, on an individual level, yeah, of course, you shouldn't be siding with the cheater. But all in all, it's still closer to, albeit not completely, don't hate the players, hate the game sort of thing. I don't particularly like the players that cheated, that's for sure, and they should still get it. Massive ban, but I'd say the most complaint right now is to be towards PD. For one, not enough of a penalty, and two, not really investigating farther than just the players. we're getting pretty close to that 3-strike rule, like I talked about for the individual players. We're already getting pretty caught picking close to that with Polyphony Digital, just for this specific issue, not to mention the probably tens of other issues that were struck out 3, 4, 5 times over, discussed in other videos. I get it. I'm probably harsher than the average to Polyphony Digital, but still, I don't see how anyone can truly spin this in a positive in terms of what the point of the manufacturers and nations and the whole GT World Series in general is supposed to be. The top of the top competing cleanly and respectfully in a physical manner once to actually get there against each other physically to show the point of racing esports in general and show the legitimacy of it. If you're looking at it at that point, I don't really see how anyone, no matter how harsh or lenient they are on an individual issue, could see this as a positive. And frankly, PD needs to be very harsh on this, so then that way there ain't so many negatives in the future. This ain't really good luck on anyone, and it most certainly ain't worth the yeehaw.